Welcome to Shut Up and Sit. I'm Yedda Stansel, a consciousness coach and consultant. I'm on a mission to bring mindfulness to the modern world. Each week, we will offer ancient healing practices, real-world examples, and the latest research in neurobiology and behavior change into fun conversation that invites you to wake up your highest self. Now, let's go shut up and sit. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's so good to be here with you. Yedda back as always. And today I am here with another lovely guest. I think for a few episodes now, I have I don't want to say that I have bored you all, but we've gone a little bit deep into the rabbit hole on lots and lots of teaching. But today I am here with the beautiful, lovely Persian princess, Rose. Rose, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh. I've been wanting to have you on the show for, I was just thinking about this as we started. We're on episode 29, and I am blown away that we have just been going through all these episodes and you haven't made it in yet. I mean, you've been all over the world. We're going to talk about that in a minute. You just got back from Iran, traveling, having all kinds of fun, doing some cool stuff. And
not enough, though.
No, I know. Never enough for you. Never know. Oh man, you guys are in for a treat today to hear from this beautiful Persian princess who is going to tell you all about how to live a barefoot and bougie lifestyle, which is going to be some really cool stuff to talk about. But
you saw the bougie thing I sent you last night.
I know. I loved that video. It was actually pretty spot on. She sent me a TikTok video last night of when you walk in and your Persian friends and your bougie friends are throwing a party and you show up. Yeah, you show up to the barbecue with cut off jeans and deviled eggs in a tray, and everybody else has got their gowns on and the glitz and glam, which is what I do love some glitz and glam, but I kind of keep some of my glitz and glam hidden some. Not as bougie as the Persians, turns out, but I do live vicariously through a lot of the bouginess that your family has introduced me to that I love.
I just love to be bougie.
I know. And it's one of the reasons why you guys, if you haven't been on the show or heard me talking about Rose yet, Rose and I actually work together at the Mindfulness Bar. Have an incredible studio downtown Richmond, Virginia. She is my partner in crime in the venture that we have here. She's been involved in the Shut Up and Sit pilot, the course, the development. She's watched this whole thing evolve. And so today, actually, I asked her, was intentional to ask her to come in as we go into chapter 5, which is titled, It's Not About Willpower. And there was a reason why I thought of you, Rose, when I thought about It's Not About Willpower, because we've spent a lot of time over the years talking about mindfulness, and I want you to tell the listeners your journey to getting into more of mindfulness. But it was never something for either of us when we started talking about this idea of creating a mindfulness bar where it had to be hard. It had to be all about force and willpower, and you just got to make yourself be the best version. I mean, even acting that out, I'm like, oh gosh.
Exhausting.
So it is exhausting, isn't it? When you have to force yourself to be something all the time.
Yes.
And so in behavior change, and in today's episode, what I want to talk to our listeners and talk to you all about is, there's a level of willpower that's important in behavior change. When you wake up and you start to do things differently and you want to change patterns and behaviors in your life, you do need a certain level of willpower. But the idea of mindfulness is if you get to the point where you can shut up and sit, as you know, Rose, what happens is those thoughts and those habits and those patterns you're trying to create, they just drop deeper into who you really are. So they become a natural way of being. And so you have actually in your culture a saying, and you know this, the listeners, I love this. I love this about your culture, but I was introduced to the Middle Eastern culture before you and I had a chance to really meet. And then when we met and we talked a little bit more about being Persian, growing up in Iran and the culture, this saying that I learned when I was in the Middle East, the inshallah, which I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I guess the southern version is inshallah.
Inshallah.
What does that mean?
It means basically we will see. Let's leave it up to God, or, just let's see what happened. It's not like we will see what happened for better or worse. It's just not, it doesn't have to be definitely get done at the moment. We will see what happened. You make plans with your friends to say, let's meet tomorrow. We'll see what time we're going to meet or where we're going to meet. we'll let you know tomorrow. We will see. You know, it's just
That's
basically
exactly
like
why
that.
we hit it off as friends,
Yes.
because it was always like, we'll see.
Yeah.
And I had been familiar with that phrase. When I went to the Middle East, I remember being actually and I heard it in Morocco and Northern Africa, but when I went to Saudi Arabia, I remember going to a university, and the president of the university, every single sentence there started and ended with this phrase. She would walk into a room, and I remember they were building this brand new, this auditorium, if you will, in this gorgeous, you think we have nice things here. The university that I was in, that the kingdom had built, that the actual king, the royal family, I guess in Saudi, had built this university. The bouginess is beyond words. I mean, it was incredible. They had these massive chandeliers. And so there was one that wasn't up yet. And the head of the school, the president of the university, she walks over and she says, Inshallah, the chandelier will be up on Wednesday, Inshallah. And she keeps taking us on the tour. Well, after a few minutes of every beginning and ending of the sentence, I finally said to one of the people that was with us from the university, I said, what does that mean? And so exactly what you said, she goes, well, it's like, yeah, we'll see. And if God wills it, and if it happens or it's meant to happen, it will happen. And if it doesn't,
it doesn't.
It doesn't. And I remember thinking, what a cool way to operate life, which is going with the flow and the flow of, if we show up, we show up. If we're on time, if we're late. So these cultural differences. So I came back to the States and I was like, inshallah.
Well, basically, it's like
maybe I'm there, maybe I'm not.
I feel like it's something like, you can't really get upset about things that's not in your control. Inshallah, that will go up, but she's not the one who's putting it up. But so it's like, just let go of control a little bit and be in a moment.
So what was that like? Because obviously you grew up in a culture with this as a way of being. And so then you moved to the States when you were how old?
17.
So you had a whole life literally in one culture, and then came to the States and then adopted and stepped into our U.S. culture, which is not inshallah.
No.
It is, I will see you at 2:00 to meet to do this, and you will be there 5 minutes early, waiting, ready. We will start, we will end, and we will move on. And it is all about control.
Yes.
Totally the opposite.
Totally opposite. So I had to learn it, but the funny part is I had to relearn it as well. So I came with the background of, we'll see what happened, getting to a culture of, if you have an attitude of, we'll see what happened, you're not going to get anywhere, or people think you're lazy, you're not doing enough, or whatever the society makes you think. So then you trying to get in that, bus or whatever, to just get on that road. Okay, I have to get up, I have to go to the gym, I have to do this. I hate getting up at 5 a.m. going to the gym. But
hey, high five, that's my soul sister right there. We're like spirit animals on that one. 5 a.m. I'm doing only one thing at 5 a.m. And you know what that is, people? Sleep. Well, sleep. Okay, two things. Sleep. The only reason I'm getting up at 5 a.m., and I know you agree with me on this one, is to catch an international flight.
That's true.
That's it, okay? Yeah. Other than that, we're not doing anything at 5 a.m.
No, I mean, I was around people, they just, we got to get up, we got to go to the gym. I was at the gym at 5 a.m., but why? I don't like this. This is not me. But then if I wouldn't do it, I will feel guilty the rest of the day. I didn't do anything. This person's done this person's done that. I haven't done anything. So I tried to fit in there that way. So,
and what was that like for you?
It was exhausting. I didn't realize that I can just be who I am and accept what I do and my personality, my lifestyle, till about, be honest with you, 5 or 6 years ago. Because then I was like, I don't, this is me. I'm running a business. I opened a studio. I'm doing my best and it's successful. I don't need to get up at 5 a.m. and have a to-do list, like stressing myself out. I have to, because I want to cross some items. No, it's just like, I get to it when I get to it, and I'll get to it. It's not like it never gets done. It gets done, but it gets done when I'm physically and mentally prepared to get it done. Yeah. I learn not to force myself, because it doesn't come out authentic, it doesn't come natural, and it just makes me exhausted.
Yeah.
So,
and I love that about you, and I love that about your culture, and having been to the Middle East. And then of course, when we met was when I owned a health club, and you came and you were a member, and then there's all kinds of cool dots that connected along the way. And then when we ran into each other again a few years ago and you had your yoga studio, I was in that conversation very much like you as an entrepreneur. And I was in that, gosh, I've had all these experiences and I'm thinking about mindfulness, and I was deep into creating my book. It was in my mind, and I was doing lots and parts of pieces of this work already with clients, but I hadn't actually formally written it or put the content together. But I remember talking to you one day, we were at the pool, and you were talking about the studio and just being frustrated in that entrepreneurial space. And I was frustrated because I thought there's a problem that's missing in our culture, especially here in the US. And mindfulness, is not a mainstream experience or belief system or word that is fun. Mm-hmm. Mindfulness is not something that is pretty easy to understand. It can be overwhelming. It's a very intense. You got to fit in. You got to do this. You got to do that. And so we were sitting there, and I said, wouldn't it be cool to kind of be more of that inshallah, go with the flow? Because this is for you listeners, if you got on a plane today and you flew over to the Middle East, you would be living a mindfulness life, even if all you did was just participate in the culture. Because kindness and compassion exist if you say inshallah and I say come on over at 2:00 and you show up at 4:00, I don't give you grief because I trust you got here when you could get here and it all works out.
Yes.
And so there was a really cool space around that culture that I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could be more inshallah, more go with the flow, and mindfulness could be a mainstream way of life, which I know at the time you were probably thinking, well, that sounds so crazy because I already lived that life. But we weren't really doing that because and for, again, just you guys listening, even in this whole mindfulness yoga move in the US, it's become very egocentric. Mm-hmm. And it's become very much about who I am, what I do. I got to sit the right way, practice the right time, in the right order. And so all of a sudden we get out of in the flow mindset, and then all of a sudden we get in the ego checklist.
Yes.
Have I sat in this direction? Did I wear this outfit? Did I go to this class? Did I miss? And I know, because we talked about this, I've met some people, even in our own community, that say they're mindful, and they are absolutely not at all a manifestation of kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity. They're just unhappy people that haven't put any makeup on or washed their hair and are wearing burlap. Yes. And I know I say that and I be offended if you want. The deal is, it's not the outer garb.
Mm-hmm. No, it's all internal in how you deal with a situation. I mean, I had experience here before at the studio that, I thought I have to check the box and then that comes, I'm a people pleaser also. So that's part of the problem too. Because one, I look at the society, I have to do this, 1, 2, 3, 4, because then I want to fit in. 2, I'm a people pleaser. So I got to make sure I get that in there. So it gets exhausting. Then I get to the point, then I'm like, okay, we start talking about more mindfulness, or I was around practicing doing more yoga and being in an environment of people keep talking about being mindful. And I'm like, that comes to me naturally. I've already do that. I mean, that's done. I don't have to go to a class to do that. I don't need anybody to tell me to do that. I do that in my everyday life. Yeah. But I guess this business of yoga or whatever, it's just like people all of a sudden they're talking about it and it makes you, you have to do this. But it's been naturally and
that's the truth people say about you. And so the mindfulness bar, so a little context and history for folks. So the mindfulness bar actually was Shaco Slip Yoga, which was the studio that you started. Yes. How many years ago has it been now?
2013.
Okay. So 8 years ago. Yeah. So a few years back, as we were talking about this, and I was going more into mindfulness, but creating more of this mainstream kind of cool can we just make these things kind of, I don't even know if sandwich is the right word. They kind of hit a head-on collision and create a space where people could learn to sit with their suffering, but still, and this is where we film every episode of the podcast, so if you're listening, you got to check out the video on YouTube, but the vibe here is very much like you would come into one of our homes, and both of us, if you walked in my home or Rose's home, you would look around the studio and you would go, oh cool, I get it, it's like being at one of your houses, because we wanted a space where people could learn to sit with their suffering, to be in what you were talking about. I'm already being mindful in the way that I live, but we wanted a different vibe for a studio feel, and we knew what we didn't want, which was a lot of the commercialism, a lot of the ego wrapped around the yoga, a lot of even the conversations we had about business. What if we were more inshallah with the way the business went? Instead of, how counting beans and dollars and cents and people and all these things, these metrics in the business world. What if we just woke up every day and said, let's just do what feels good. Let's go with the flow. And what I love about creating the space and working with you is if I show up 15, 20 minutes late, if Rose shows up, if she messages me and says she's on her way, that whole beingness is we just go with the flow, inshallah.
I mean, this is the second time you asked me. I had to cancel on you last week.
I mean, but that's the cool part. So this is a different place, and we are talking about, it's not about willpower in the book, but I'm bringing this in. This is a way of life for you that you grew up with. And it's interesting. I'm curious as you think about coming into the U.S. and then meeting people like me who are like, hey, I've got a business idea. Why don't we, inshallah, and be more go with the flow? And you're looking at me and you're probably going, that's a business idea? I thought it was a way of life. But when you think about living here in the U.S. since you got here at 17, so do you feel like you have like a dual type of cultural belief system because you've been in both countries long enough now to have two different experiences?
Yes, that's kind of, I don't know if it's a fun place to be at because you don't know if you're 100% in this culture or 100% in that culture. It's just like you're just flowing back and forth. It just depends on the situation, I guess, because good example. So I just was back in Iran about a month ago. So then when I'm there with that culture and among all my friends there, then I see my American cultures kicking in because I'm there in a limited time. So I want to make sure I get FOMO because then FOMO, it's an American thing that I got here. It's not fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So when I'm there, I want to make sure I see my friends, I go to places I want to go, and I want to make plans. So call my friends, hey, would you I'm free next Monday. It's Monday, next Monday I'm free. Would you like to go such and such a place? I'd like to go check it out. Oh, we'll see. I'll let you know. Okay. All right. So I'll wait. And I'm like, okay, I just need to be calm. She will let me know. So comes Monday, it's Sunday. Are we going tomorrow? Yeah, I'll let you know. What time we're meeting? I'll let you know. Comes Monday morning. It will get done, but I had no idea what time until Monday morning. And then Monday morning. So the reason I'm saying this is just my American culture, I want to know. I'm planning it a week ahead because I want to know what time so I can plan my rest of the week. But then my Iranian culture is just it's just my laid back, go with the flow, just chill. You get it done. And at the end, I got to go where I wanted to go. I got to hang out with my friend, and it was on a Monday, so I just didn't have to stress myself.
So that part of you was already there, but it's interesting to hear you say when you're in the other culture, how you start to see which piece of you shows up. But it's actually pretty cool, I would think, to be able to have both experiences and to learn how to maneuver in and out and carry different aspects into the other culture that you're in.
It is, but sometimes it's also frustrating as well. Because it just
the social norms too.
Yes.
I mean, then you're fighting and you're dealing with all of the that could be an issue. And so for you, opening a yoga studio, just to kind of bring it back to your journey into mindfulness. So did you always have a draw towards yoga just because of your upbringing in mindfulness, or was yoga just something that came to you? What was the story for you to open a yoga studio?
Well, yoga was just the opportunity. My upbringing was not in yoga or anything like that. Actually, when I opened the yoga studio, I was just maybe practicing yoga for 4 months. So my upbringing was being entrepreneur and go with the flow and just see what you can do, hustle, and to make living off. So my dad has been my, I guess, role model, I will say. It's just I seen him, what he's done, and he always had his own business. So that was always attractive to me. That's always what I wanted to do. So then, after losing my job to corporate America because of whatever's was happening.
Was that back during the finance? Yeah, the financial stuff. So you were in the banking, and then that whole finance thing, that bubble popped. And so you were like, what am I going to do?
What am I going to do? Actually, when I was working for one of the banks, and I got a notification that I'm getting laid off. So I remember that day up the street, I was walking down crying. I'm like, what am I going to do? I mean, oh my God, I'm getting laid off, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I was crying. But looking back into it, that was the best thing ever happened to me because that was my American side. The American culture. I went here, I went to college. As soon as I got out of college, I got a job. I'm working for corporate America. checking the boxes. I'm good to go. And then when I got laid off and I'm walking down the street, I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. So, it took a couple of years. Then I knew at the end that I wanted to have my own business. I didn't know what business. I just wanted to have my own business.
Yeah.
So anyways, then I started practicing yoga. Then I was living actually down the block thinking there's no studio down here. There's a need for yoga studios. So I saw a need, an opportunity, and I jumped into it. I jumped into it because I saw a business opportunity. I didn't jump into it because, oh my God, yoga is my living life, and that's what I wanted to do. So, and
although you are really good at it.
Well, I am, and I got into it, and I love it, and I got certified. But my first, initial of being involved with yoga, it was just the business of it.
Yeah.
So once I opened a studio, I wasn't teaching, I was practicing, I hired people. So it was all about business. And more I got more comfortable with the business started, going on its own. So I start, taking more classes, get certified, I'm teaching, and I enjoy teaching it. And it's...
But running the business, when you and I finally kind of circled back and met each other again at an event, actually, one of the yoga events here in the city, and then we started chit-chatting and talking about it, the part that you didn't really love was that day-to-day running of the business. And so we were talking about that. And so how we work together is, and I think this is kind of funny, but it's, if you say, I say to people, if you put Rose and I together, you make the perfect entrepreneur.
Yes.
Because you make people feel amazing.
I do.
I don't. So we admit that, okay?
I don't even try, but I guess I keep getting that feedback.
But you do. People love your classes. And so this is when Rose and I work together, we figured that out pretty quickly. And when I say I don't, I am the big picture. I'm the American kicks in. I'm like, where are we? Where are we going to go? How are we going to do this? Da, da, da. And then your voice keeps but let's think about this. And I'm like, oh, thank you for keeping us in the heart space, because I jump really quickly to my head. And you're in your heart. And so in the studio space, when we decided to merge together and kind of just to bring your studio and some of the work I was doing in coaching and mindfulness and narrative coaching and create a new business venture, that was the space that you were able to free up a little bit of that kind of day-to-day stuff that you did not want to do.
Yes.
Which I didn't mind doing, because I'm like, I'm really good at that stuff. I can get shit done. I can get people to make major breakthroughs. It's messy. It's ugly. It's hard. But then when I'm done with them, I pass them off to you, and then you make them feel better.
Yes.
And so, or if they come to you and they're feeling not so great and they kind of want to do some deeper dive, you're like, you know what, why don't you go over and work with Yedda? And then, so we have this space where we've learned that we don't have to be all things. And this is where willpower comes in. I can make people feel good. And doesn't mean, and actually I substituted for a class for you a couple of weeks ago with a group of girls. And it was so great because, normally my version of yoga is like power yoga, and we're going to get a workout on, and, we're going to have some upbeat music. And they wanted more of a yin yoga. They wanted more of the Rose yoga. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And when it was done, one of the women was like, I didn't know you had that in you, Yedda. It was so exhausting to go so slow and be so soft. And I was like, please, Rose, come home soon. So we can do, right? Willpower can kick in and we can do these things. But the whole point, and this is why I address this in my work and with my clients and our story, is you don't have to work to mitigate your weaknesses all the time to the point where it's like holding a beach ball underwater and it's hard and it's difficult. If anything, that's life telling you you're not, inshallah, you're not going with the flow.
No, what I learned about through the studio and the business and the yoga and being mindful and the cultural difference was that I was trying to do, when I opened a studio, just as a new business, I was trying to do everything myself. That's what I eventually, when I met you, I was burned out. I was like, I don't want to do it, because then part of it was like, I feel like society or people around me was judging me for me not doing it, not doing all of myself.
Oh, that comparing mind kicks in. Oh, the studio across the street's doing this and down the road's doing that. And you're like...
The website has to be this way. The studio has to be this way. You have to, offer this specific class or all these things. And you start comparing. And I'm like, do social media. I'm not a social media person, but it just the things that I had to force myself to do to do it to get my business going, and I did not like it. And I mean, I had to do it, and I did it, but I didn't enjoy it, and I was hard on myself, and I didn't give myself enough credit, just because, you know.
And what was that like for your self-esteem?
It was exhausting, and I just never thought I did good enough. I didn't, you know, till I got to the point. Then I was like, and we talk about, when I'm saying we, I mean you and I and other people in the studio, we're talking about more mindful, and just, you know, I'm like, I'm mindful. If I'm doing a social media and I know my whole body's hurting and that's not mindful. Tense, it's not mindful. The mindful being about it is like, I don't like to do this, hand it off to somebody else, delegate, give stuff away. And just because I do that doesn't mean I'm not successful. I'm lazy.
And it's a different definition too. And this is what I think is important. And for those of you all listening, when you think about the idea of willpower and versus going with the flow, there are different ways to go with the flow. And so the going with the flow of, oh, this feels open and expansive and easy, and it's like the law of least effort. You go with that flow. There's another flow though that is called procrastination, which is I'm just going to avoid or ignore or not deal with it. And that's got to restrict it. It has a kind of, like you said, it's either I'm forcing myself with willpower or I'm restricting myself by holding myself to, you know, tightly where I'm not doing and going with the flow. And I love this metaphor. The listeners have heard me talk about it before, but you're putting your boat in and turning and going down river, right? Or so would you put a boat in the water? And I said this a few episodes ago, and turn up river and get all your friends in and say, paddle hard as you can against the tide and the rapids. It's exhausting. And that's exactly right. And so this thing about willpower, so for our listeners, you know, it's not about using mindfulness to mitigate your weaknesses to be something that you're not. It's literally sitting in the flow and going, I'm just going to go with what feels easy, what comes naturally to me. There is an existence to all of the universe that is happening that is so much bigger than we are, than our finite minds and egos. And I love what you mentioned when you said delegate it. We need each other. We all have wisdom. We all have success. We all have strengths. If we could work to our strengths and learn how to work together, that's mindfulness. And so we've been able to build a mindful business, and we're continuing to grow mindfulness products and lots of cool stuff coming. This course is going online. You've got classes and series that you're doing here at the studio. We're open back up, so virtual. We do some virtual still, you guys, but we're open back up for folks to come in, so you can flow with Rose. You can cry, and I can, you know, give you a little psychological kind of workout if you want afterwards or before. And so we've figured out how to do that. But what I love about this, and I want our listeners to hear this, mindfulness isn't just something you do in a studio, on a mat, in a private little space in practice, and then you go out and you live a different life or you live a different world. No. And that's why we created this business, because we wanted people to cultivate mindfulness like you did growing up, like I've learned through my skills. But we wanted people to take it out into the mainstream and show up and start to live, inshallah. Go with the flow. If people are late, if things don't work out, showing up with self-compassion, showing up with kindness, with the ability to interact with people and accept them no matter who they are, where they are, or when they get here, or if they don't get here at all. Because when we set up expectations with this very Western U.S. culture, it's damaging to relationships, it's damaging to our self-esteem, our psyche, our mental health, our physical health. And it's damaging to the people that we're around, because nobody wants to be around somebody who's constantly forcing and making things happen. I mean, that you know, when I get in that moment and you tell me, you're like, inshallah, mashallah, inshallah. And I'm like, okay, all right, I need to let it go. You'll come over and be like, I'm going to take this from you. And so we made a commitment in this business to be very mindful. What would it look like if mindfulness was the way we operated our business? And there are times where we're like, it's not going to get done. No. I mean, we trust that. And it always works out, doesn't it?
Yes. I mean, mindfulness is also just like, be aware of what's going on in your body, like, you know, just or around you, every little things. Just because, you know, think about it. If you say, oh, I'm tired today. Why are you tired? Or, you know, you're talking to somebody, you're like, oh, today's, you know, they're complaining about something. People always complain. We were talking about that earlier. But what's the core reason of you being, you know, complaining? It could be about anything, but
because you're not going with the flow. You're not saying to something outside of yourself, I'm trusting that there's a bigger, greater thing happening here, bigger than my ego and bigger than me.
Yes, it's willpower. you know, it has positive and negative. And as far as mindfulness, it's like,
do you want to say this all in Farsi? Sometimes I'm her translator, people. She's you could take, you tell us in Farsi.
Because in Farsi is going to get worse, because that's a different chapter that I can't even speak Farsi
So
anymore.
It doesn't translate as just like that? Okay. No. All right. I hear you talking Farsi all the time. So willpower, positive, negative, and there are two different ways.
Yes, it all comes back to being aware of your feelings and how you feel physically and mentally, and what's going on around you. Yeah. That's and then, then if it's your body's telling you, I don't want to go to the gym at 5 a.m.
You listen to it.
That's the willpower.
Hear that? That was massive amounts of wisdom right there. When your body says at 5 a.m. you don't have to go to the gym. Now, in this chapter, we do talk about, there's a great TED Talk, and we went through this course when we piloted making the actual final book, and the TED Talk says that the brain pulls the emergency brake within 5 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. And we had a conversation about this. At 5 a.m., when I am trying to force myself to get into a new habit to get up and go to the gym, if I've set the intention that that's the best time of day for me to do it, I want to create a new habit, and I'm willing to make that commitment, then by all means at 5 a.m. when you do feel the longing to stay in bed, if you don't act, the brain pulls the emergency brake and it will not propel you into a new habit or new pattern. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think you're going into with the positive and negative. Now, on the other side of that spectrum is people like you and I who say, I don't care if it means I've got to get up at 5 a.m. to create this new habit. I'm not going to do that because my body doesn't function well when I start with that intense exercise that early at an hour, which mine doesn't, yours doesn't either.
Yes.
I mean, by noon, I'm asleep.
Yes.
Yeah, and we got to start all over again.
That's why you speak English. Now you explain that a lot easier than I was trying to explain it.
Well, I am your interpreter.
There you go.
So that I can bring it out into English. But that's the whole cool thing about this is willpower and mindfulness is the discernment, literally, in my language, of shutting up and sitting down and going within and saying, I'm creating new habits and patterns. The ones I'm letting go of, if they don't serve me, that's fine. If I'm creating new ones, willpower plays a role. But if you're relying on willpower all the time to make something happen, it means it's not a natural pattern that's dropped down into your body, literally, and into your being. And after a while, there is a mind-body connection. Our listeners have heard that up to this point. So you do have to learn how to be mindful and discern, is this willpower going to start a new pattern and habit that I'm wanting that's going to benefit me? Or is there something else I need to listen to here? So if you said to Rose and I, 4:30 p.m. workout every day. Now, I'm willing to commit to a little willpower for that. 4:30 afternoon is perfect time for me.
Yes.
I've been up, I've done all my work, I've had my caffeine. I don't ever schedule anything major to do at that time of day. That's my premium time.
Yes.
So then you combine how you listen to your body and your life and your whole system and your beliefs, and then you incorporate willpower. But what I think is great here and what you're helping us with today and the listeners to learn is you can have some cultural beliefs and your 4 components of human can be showing up, but you're not trying to completely change who Rose is and then go into somebody else's total lifestyle and mechanism of beliefs and behavior, because that doesn't work for you.
No, I was there. I did that. I did not like it. And it was not a good place.
No, well, I got to tell you, and so this is one thing the listeners don't know about Rose and I. So Rose's husband is my boyfriend's brother. So we do lots of family stuff together. So for many years now, family vacations, family events. And so these guys are cut from the same cloth. And so 5 a.m. is the time that Jeff likes to get up and go work out. And we've had lots of conversations over the years. Guess what? You're not staying over on the mornings you're waking up at 5 a.m. and going for a run. We've just come to that agreement that that's just not something that works. Yeah. We've also come to the agreement that if that works for you, that doesn't mean it works for me.
Exactly.
So I work out at 4:30 p.m. Mm-hmm. That's my premium spot right there. So it took a little while, though, because as human beings, you guys, what we do is we think, well, if I do it this way and I get this result, that means everybody else should do it this way because they'll get the same result. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, mindfulness tells us that's not true. And I can sit with you and you can go do 5 a.m. workout and I can do 4 p.m. workout, and we can both get healthy and be happy and arrive at the same outcome by the end of the day.
Yes.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Talking about mindfulness and family vacation, and my culture and my husband's culture going to vacation together. So
totally different.
Totally
Knowing
different.
both families, totally different.
my family vacation is, we'll see. We get there. We're on vacation. We wake up whenever we wake up. We eat whenever we want to eat. We do things together or not. We will see, inshallah, what happens.
Moment by moment. It's all mindfulness. I love it.
It's mindfulness. I mean, and we all have a good time. We are on vacation to relax. Be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So, and then we go with family. My husband's family. We get up in the morning. I mean, I don't, but everyone has to do workout. They do so much before it is the beach time. Can we just get up and have a cup of coffee and walk to the beach and sit? And I sit.
It's so fascinating to see the cultural differences and to watch you, because you do have two extreme experiences between those families.
I mean, in the past, I used to feel guilty because I just sit on the beach and enjoy the beach. Everybody's doing a workout or doing something. And I was like...
But that's mindfulness. Would you say mindfulness has cultivated or allowed you the ability to cultivate? You can be in both of those experiences and not judge the other, because that's just the way it is.
Exactly. And that also, mindfulness helped me not to feel guilty.
Mm-hmm. To just accept this is the way it is. But that's part of your core cultural upbringing too.
Yes.
Well, this is, I love getting into this, and you know me because you've seen me create books and all types of workbooks over the years. And it's actually kind of funny that we in the U.S. need an entire manual about learning the science and the psychology. And I remember you were like, you wrote a book about what? Why? And I'm thinking, because these are not societal norms and patterns of ways of being here in the U.S. Like you said.
But be honest with you, if you would have brought it up, I never thought about it, because as I say, it always come to me naturally. I never thought I'd have to read a book about it.
And then what didn't come naturally for me is sitting with people and being mindful, and just in that open, heartfelt space that you just bring with your presence of being mindful. Now, the good news is I'm several years down the road, and I do get glimmers and glimpses, and people are like, oh, there's a little bit of Rose coming out in you. And I'm like, I've been cultivating it. I just shut up and sit. I try to go within. But that's really what happens is willpower plays its role. But if you're this is what I want you all to hear, if you're totally relying on willpower, you're going to make it a lot harder, and it's going to take a lot longer, because it means it's not an automatic way of being. And mindfulness, shutting up, sitting, I know your practice is yoga. Yoga is something that you've been really fond of, and it's been a practice around cultivating more mindfulness. And when you get into cultivating it, it drops deeper into who you are. And so when you go out in the world, it shows up. And so I'm wondering, before we wrap up, if you could maybe speak to that. We haven't really talked a lot about yoga. I've talked about different meditations and mindfulness practices. But is there anything that you would want to share with the listeners about what you found helpful with yoga in cultivating a deeper, even though you already had some mindfulness practices, what was it about yoga that you were drawn to, and what did it help you do to go deeper into being more mindful, especially in this culture?
Well, what I liked about yoga, and I don't know if you can tell or not, as far as getting up at 5 a.m., going workouts and stuff, and exercising, it's not me. Like, going in hardcore exercises was just not me.
So the type of exercise was not for you. Doesn't matter what time of day. You weren't going to do the boot camp class at 4:30 by choice.
I used to come to your gym at lunchtime.
That's right. You took the body pump class.
And that was the most I would do. But it wasn't, once again, was I really enjoying it? No. But it was like the society.
Tell the truth, please.
Yeah, it was just because I felt like I had to do it just to say I checked the box. So then I started taking yoga classes, and I liked the mental. And then also I was moving my body. That was just good for me as far as exercise.
So it felt good for you to do that type of movement and that pace.
Yes, and I don't like getting my heart rate up, So that's, I mean...
The sloth is your spirit animal.
Exactly.
Well, for real. Oh, fox? Oh, I thought the sloth. Or is it back and forth?
Back and forth. Depends. Okay. Depends which culture I live in.
I got you. Remember the calendar with the sloth and all the yoga poses?
Yes.
Oh, it's the best.
Yes. Depends which culture I'm in. I guess it can go both ways.
Okay. The fox, the sneaky fox, the slow sloth. Well, you can marry them together.
Well, the reason I said fox, we had a class here, a workshop to find your spirit animal. And
do you know what mine is? Do you want to take a guess?
I want to say rabbit, but
That's a good one. Actually, Jeff sent me a picture of a rabbit this morning. No, a monkey. You know why? Because they have opposable thumbs. I couldn't go through life without thumbs. I could pick stuff up if I have thumbs. Any other animal, you'd have like a beak. You'd have to that wouldn't work. I need thumbs.
That's true.
I would be a monkey. And monkeys are pretty high energy too. Intellectual, touchy-feely, affectionate, thumbs, monkey.
Yeah.
All right, so back to your yoga wisdom. I got us all sidetracked.
So, I mean, I got into yoga because I liked it. I liked the movement of it, and just the mindfulness of it. It just introduced me to different things that I didn't know about it. And what I could tell, like, you know, whenever I talk to people and people are like, oh, you teach yoga, and they're like, oh, I can't even touch my toe. But the thing is, it's not about touching your toe. To me, yoga is just, you just show up. You can even be at your home, or you can be here. I always tell people, you show up here, you want to sit and don't do anything, that's your yoga for today. Just sit and just be in the feelings that you have, in emotions,
so it was
or whatever.
like an inshallah workout.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Even though yoga means unity, which is the body, the mind, the spirit, kind of everything coming together. Mm-hmm. So I never thought about that for you. So yeah, it is totally an inshallah workout.
Yes.
We just go with the flow. And someday the body says, no, we're not touching toes. Some days it says we are.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell my class, when you're here, you want to be in child pose the entire time, be in a child pose. That's what your body wants. That's your mind telling you, or, that's the mindfulness, like what's going on with you, or you know what you need, and just listen to it. Don't look at the person next to you just because you're trying to compare or compete and you don't get anything out of it. That's not a yoga.
Yeah.
Or yoga class.
Well, I got to tell you, if you live in Richmond and you want to come down and you want to experience the amazing Rose on the mat in the studio, she is an incredible instructor. I do love when I flow with you, but you know me, I'm a little bit all over the place. I go yoga
I'm too
a little
slow
bit
for you.
Yeah, and sometimes I like yoga, but for me, my personality and kind of where I'm at with my energy. So this is what's really cool about the whole mindfulness thing and the whole inshallah we're talking about. I don't force willpower. If I'm making myself have to do stuff over a certain period of time, I know it's time to shift and go, I need to find a different direction. Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about this, and you guys are in chapter 5, if you've got a copy of the book or you're following along in the course, the whole point of us really talking about this is knowing how to discern, when do I hit the gas and when do I get a little willpower going? When do I hit the brake and I actually go, no, I'm not forcing this one, I'm going to go with the flow. Mm-hmm. Because when we learn in mindfulness to, inshallah, to go with the flow of life, we realize that current behind us, whether you use the river metaphor or whatever it is, riding the wave, whatever it is, there's so many metaphors in mindfulness, but when we go with the flow, there's an energy that carries us through that is so much bigger than us, that helps us, that works with us. That's what I really love about mindfulness. And so actually the funny thing is, as much as you'd think I might be a bunny, and I am really a monkey, I'm a spirit animal, I love sitting. You know this about me. I love the shutting up and the sitting and just contemplating and just being in a space of silence. So I'm either on or I'm off. Mm-hmm. That kind of neutral, yoga to me sometimes is neutral. I have to kind of know when it's time for me to go into neutral, but the whole idea of going within with mindfulness is such a beautiful way to help rewire those patterns, because we are asking people, not just in your yoga practice, but in any mindfulness practice, deeply what we're doing is we're cultivating a way of patterning mindfulness in our mind, in our body, and in our spirit, and having all three of those come together in that unity. And it can happen on the mat in yoga. It can happen sitting in mindfulness meditation. There's lots of ways to cultivate it, but it's the practice. And the one thing that I think is great is we kind of start to wrap up here with our listeners. And what I want you all to listen when you are thinking about this is, if you get to the point where you wake up and it becomes such a ritual that you start beating yourself up if you don't do it in this way, at this order, at this time, that's when you need to go, it's not about willpower. I've got to let go. Because sometimes I wake up, you actually were at my house the other day and you walked in my meditation room and you're like, do you ever come in here? And I was like, every morning, Rose. Mm-hmm. Well, the truth is some mornings, like this morning was the one where I heard the birds chirping outside the window, and I thought, I don't have to sit in this position in this room on this cushion this morning. I actually walked down to the lake. I sat, I watched, I listened to the birds. I did some stillness, some contemplation, sitting on a rock, barefoot, and it was just as meaningful. Mm-hmm. So this whole idea of it's not about willpower, what we want you all to take away from this is it's okay to have it sometimes, and it's also okay to trust that something else, the inshallah, the go with the flow, let's just see what's going to happen. When it starts to show up, don't let it freak you out.
Yes.
Experiment with it. Have fun with it. Mm-hmm. And if you show up late and someone gets upset with you, you can blame it on me and Rose. You can say, but they said on the show, I could go with the flow. And then if they still get upset with you, you can start talking in Farsi and you can say, inshallah, inshallah. And then all of a sudden they're going to be so confused, they're going to forget what's going on. And then you just try it again another time. But that's really, I mean, this is meant to be fun.
Yes.
So it's the one thing that as we end, you know, what a lot of our listeners also don't know about you is you do love to have fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So
always about the fun.
So Rose is married to someone who owns a company that does what for a living?
Jump out of a plane.
Yeah, skydiving. How many times have you been skydiving?
25.
25 times you've jumped out of a plane. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
I don't know if that's a lot or that's not enough.
Well, I can tell you I've jumped out of a plane zero times. Mm-hmm. 0 times. So this other space for you with the inshallah and the adventure and the fun is another reason why I wanted to work with you, because mindfulness isn't supposed to be boring and awful and miserable. You can still be a normal, fun person.
Yes.
You not only jump out of planes, you scuba dive, and you guys do all kinds of cool trips. You travel all over the world.
I do. Not enough.
Yeah,
yes,
I know.
Yes.
I know, not enough.
Yeah.
And so that space of mindfulness means, I want the listeners to hear that too. You can still do things you love to do. You do them very mindfully.
Yes. I mean, you can't just say, oh, I have to do this way. It has, like you were talking about earlier, and it kind of relate to what you're talking about. As far as yoga, for example, like if you practice yoga every day and let's say I'm taking a trip. I'm, on the road doing what I like to do, go on a trip. And then I have to take that yoga class because, my American culture said you have to go through your list every day, your routine. But I don't get a chance to go. Like, for example, if I go see my family, and I'm like, oh, I have to go to my yoga class. But in the morning, it doesn't happen because I'm in a different routine, different environment. So my yoga for myself would be spending time with my family. That's my mindfulness. And that's my yoga practice for that day.
I love that.
That's my yoga practice. If I'm taking a trip or spending time with my husband, just walking on the beach, that's my yoga practice. I don't have to force something, into
I love
it,
that.
So.
And so you guys travel not only for enjoyment, but you also do retreats, and we have one coming up in the spring to Greece next year. We've gone on a couple of trips, you and I, Italy, Greece. You've done South America, Costa Rica, some cool stuff. So you're bringing your retreats back. Chasing Adventure is the name of them, you guys, so you can check them out.
I love to chase adventure.
Oh, she does. So here's the deal. When you do a retreat with Rose, Chasing Adventure, it is not your simple yoga, mindful, what you all would expect.
No.
It's going to have fun. It's going to have shopping. It's going to have a lot of adventure, different cool stuff.
Believe it or not, I've done yoga retreat and skydiving.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Did you know you could do that?
Get away.
Inshallah, inshallah. And we hope we land.
Go both ends.
Yeah. So so it's really cool. So on our website, mindfulness, it's actually mindfulness-bar.com. You can check out the retreats, and Rose has some cool stuff. She does local ones here if you're in Richmond, down at the Vineyard. That's the other thing. We do yoga and then we drink wine, because that's the way it is. And so you could do local retreats with you, and you also have some international retreats coming up. Greece was an incredible one, going to Athens, being in the Epidavros, the center of the aura, and all this cool stuff's coming. So what I just love is not only do we get to work together, hang out together, live together, play together, do all this cool stuff. This is our first podcast episode together. Did you know that? I know, and you were so nervous. You did so great. You did amazing.
Thank
you did. See, you did amazing.
Yeah.
So it's great to have you come down, but I thought you were the perfect person, and I'm sure our listeners would agree. You were the perfect person to come down and say, look, it's not about willpower. We sometimes go with the flow. Sometimes we don't, but we learn how to discern that. That's a natural part of who you are. And I just love that about you. I just love being in your presence. And I know you feel the same, so you don't need to say that out loud. So I'm just going to own that's going to be a follow-up.
Well, thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. It's so great. I mean, you do, this is part of your business too. So it is kind of your office that we're hanging out in.
Wearing this cool.
I know. When we
hear myself here, it's awesome.
Yeah, when we put these on the first time, I was like, I look like a Lhasa Apso, and I'm not feeling it. But you know what? I got over it. I got past it. So it's all good. So we're wrapping up our episode about It's Not About Willpower, going right into chapter 5. We've got some really cool stuff coming up on the next episode. And on the next episode, I'm actually looking a little bit forward what we're going to be talking about, because the American in me does chunk information. Rose knows that. We're going to be talking on the next episode about the 12 questions that guide you into the present moment. Because I had to sit down and I thought, well, there are really cool questions. People would say, well, how do I get in the present moment, Yedda? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should research that. How do you get into the present moment? Because in our culture, I wasn't raised like you. So that was a valid question. And a lot of my clients are like, what is the present moment? How do I get into it? So on our next episode, I'm going to be teaching you what those 12 questions are. You've got the book. You can follow along. If not, you can go to the website. You can go to shutupandsit.com. Check that out. We got some cool stuff. We've got our online course and community that's going on, which is suascommunity.com. We got online classes now, and we've got some really cool ideas Rose and I do for what's coming in the future. Mindfulness bar, yoga, retreats, courses, classes, books, workshops, all kinds of cool stuff. So just keep hanging out, keep showing up every week, and just and shutting up and sitting down and listening to us. Mm-hmm. I'm going to close us as I always do with a quote. Rose knows I love my quotes, and this one's actually really appropriate for our topic today. Okay. So as you guys are getting ready to head out and wherever you're going on your day to day and make it a mindful one, I want to close you with a quote from Oriah Mountain Dreamer. How cool of a name is that? I don't think she's from the U.S. So here's the quote that I have in chapter 5, but I want to leave you with, and it says, "One day you wake up able to name the weight that you've been carrying, realizing it's not part of your body or your being, not essential in any way to journeying or joy. You set it down gently without fanfare in the long, soft grass at the side of the road, and you walk on surprised to find yourself smiling in the warm sun for no particular reason." And I would say, Rose, that's a American version of your version
what I just said.
Of, and close us. You say it better than I do.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Until next time, you guys, we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Have a great day.
May you know goodness. May you know peace. May you know contentment. May you be at ease.